Welcome to Wellsday, your favorite day of the week. We have Przemek today and myself. We're going to talk today about reasons why people leave their jobs and key drivers as well, why people decide to leave their jobs, what are the things that we can potentially do to retain our employees, and any other ideas. And I think that the topic for today was sparked by the article that you read, Przemek. And so if you can tell us more about the article, and then let's have a chat about the article, and maybe I can relate to this topic of what's happening in New Zealand.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. The starting point to this conversation was the article that I found on LinkedIn, but originally it was published on the boredom, which is one of the biggest mainstream portal in Poland. And the title of this article is that the mortgage is paid and kids are grown up. So employees from Warsaw decide to leave their corporate world, and they claim that they have lost several years or even 2 decades of their lives. This article says that a manager at an international corporation resigns from his job and his almost 4,000 euro plus per month salary, and he decides to start working in social services or government services, where he will be earning at least three times less. But he also says that after two decades of the hard work in the corporate world, in the international company, he didn't want to catch up anymore, and he wanted to regain his life. And the conclusion of this article is that people do not want to work 60 plus hours a week anymore. And there's no more people on the open spaces that are 45 plus years old. So this article underlines that there's some kind of movement, some kind of trend on the market greatly experienced employees do not want to work in the international companies because of the burnt out process.
This is only for Poland, or was it also, or do you see this as a trend in Europe and other countries?
I think this article this article is written by one person, so one journalist. So I think this is more like a feuilleton based on one person observations or some kind of interviews than large quantity run data.
Okay, well, I think it's quite interesting. I'm not sure if it's a trend or not, but I remember when I was in Poland, or I lived in Poland, we used to have a saying when I was in the corporate world as well, and how about just hand out your notice, stop working, and just move to some like countryside and be a farmer or whatever. And all of this, the stress, the burnout, as I say, just can be, disappear magically, which is not always the case. And I think it's interesting whether it's a real thing that you can see the trend, and a lot of people like 45 plus, as you say, just leave their jobs, or is it more like longing to be free almost? Because a lot of people in corporation, as you say, are working for 60, 80 hours. That's a lot, especially if we combine it now with the 4-day week. And a lot of companies are introducing, and a lot of talk about well-being and mental health, etc. So I'm curious how this could work, or really translate into the work and employee market as well. If we suddenly see a lot of people leaving, like a great resignation, but specific group of people after decades in corporation, wonder if what's their level of happiness and if their, let's say, basic needs are really being met because they earn less money, but no, money is not everything, as we know.
I think the main question is, are you happy that you are going to your work every day? If you are not, it
Mm,
means that it's a pointless job. Because for me, for example, the most important thing when I used to work in the international companies was the self-development feeling, or having the feeling of the self-development process. And
mm,
that was the key driving intrinsic motivation that I had
mm,
to, for example, change the workplace or to feel the fulfillment of doing my job, that I add some more value to the system, or I mean ecosystem of the company, or
mm,
its product, I mean its products or services. Uh,
mm,
I've got, for example, from my field of friends and my group of friends, every year, the older I get, the more messages I receive from my friends who are still working in international big companies. That, for example, they start to feel burnout. That their lack of motivation to go to their job every on an everyday basis, and they are trying to look for some kind of solution idea, because they say that they have money to do something,
mm,
but they are afraid to start it, or they don't have any idea what to do. So they have
Oh,
got
well,
resources, but they don't have any driving, I mean, the driver, the idea what to do. And
mm.
I
Is it
wouldn't say
also
that, hmm?
that it's like it's like I get that really. There's a lot of people get burnout and you want to change things, but you have no idea what to do. Like even as I say, you have resources, but is it almost like you thinking of a skill of being like an entrepreneur or entrepreneurship skill, like trying to figure out the new ideas for businesses or where to invest. We're not really being taught that skill
No.
anywhere. It's almost considered, I think, as something you're born with or not, which is not true. This is you can still
This is
learn the skill.
Yes, this is not given. This is earned. Yes, and this is an earned skill, not a given skill. Of course,
Yeah.
sometimes you can have some more self-confidence or skill, I mean, sales abilities that you, because your parents were in the sales force or something like that. But yeah, but people, while they have the resources, the problem is with for example, being a specialist or manager in a big company, is that your area of knowledge of specialization is very narrow. Yes,
Mm,
and when so you specialize in, for example, international money transfers, money laundering, or servicing B2B.
anti-money laundering.
Sorry, yeah, anti-money laundering, international, for example, loans, car fleet leasing, and so on and so on.
Mm,
But when you decide to start something on your own, the area of responsibility is 360 degrees, and you are in the center point of everything that goes around. So
yeah.
many people are really scared about this, because they've got a fake image of running a business, sourced from the Hollywood movies, that running a business is drinking a coffee on the boulevard with the sunset, or the
Mm,
midday,
I
and
wish.
yes, and spending a very nice and 6 or 5 or 3 hours every
Mm,
second day, sipping your best soda from Italy. And this is not the true. So the problem is that, from what I observe, that many people want to start something on their own, but
mm,
they lack of expertise in the vast area that is
mm.
needed to run your business for your own.
It's almost like you're describing the being a concept of being a T-shaped person.
Mm.
Um, you're probably familiar with that, but this is when for those people who are not familiar with the T-shaped person concept, is that you specialize in one area, so this is your core, but also you get an interest of being a generalist in other areas. So you're
Mhm.
not limiting yourself just to be in a narrow either position or area of expertise. And as an example, I started in HR, moved to say recruitment and project change management. I call them building blocks to do different things. And I am in L&D, but I say that this is not my limit because I like to do other things. I don't like to close myself in a box called L&D. And that's, I think, it helped me as well to know what's out there, what's in different areas, and get interest in being motivated with different things.
Mm.
So when I looked for another job, we talked about reasons for looking for another job or for leaving current employers. You know the saying because it's very popular. People come to the or start working for an employer, but they leave because of their managers.
That's
So that's
true. That's right.
it's absolutely true, and that's but when I'm thinking of, looking what's out there, if you're looking for a corporate word that you want to leave that behind and you want to start something on your own, and it's I like that the idea of, being on the Sunset Boulevard drinking coffee because you run your own business. It's nothing like that. Because I'm I'm currently into so I have my say normal job, my day job, which is 40 hours per week salary job, but I also have my own business. And I thought it's going to be easy, nice, and got the product, got the services. Yeah, we can do it. And it's really hard work, and it's constant, and it takes a lot of energy and drive, like internal drive, to keep going. And I'm not in this lucky position that I can, leave my job, which I actually love what I'm doing right now, but the idea for being financial freedom or financial being independent totally, it's not there yet because my own business it's not at that stage.
Mm.
And it probably takes more like several years until it is like well
Mm.
established. So
Mm.
it is quite interesting from my perspective to see all those stories of people leaving their corporate world and becoming, as you say before, carpenters or doing some traveling, etc., and being so happy. Good for them. But this is one in a million probably that will achieve something like that, or one in 500,000. The other people will find themselves in a situation that they will really, I don't say crash, but there will be really big reality check that what we saw on those great pictures or reading an article about some great person left company and become, let's say, a farmer, a carpenter, and leading happy life. It's not happening for everyone. Um, and if you think that it's so easy, well, good on you. And if you can achieve that, absolutely. But I would always keep it a the reality check. Just I say have your high hopes really high and but plan for everything, but also be ready that it's not a smooth ride always when
Yeah,
you're
but
thinking of changing.
before somebody decides to run his or her own business, is to ask yourself the question: Are you capable of, or am I capable of managing all the aspects of running the business? So
Mm,
logistics, financial, hiring people, firing people, cooperation with the government institutions, cooperation with your Department of Treasury, taxes, banks, everything. Yes, you will not have at the very first stage of your company, you will, or in your small business, you will not have probably the money to spend for your personal assistant or junior specialist and so on and so on. And to be honest, the people who decide to run their own business is the minority. So the majority will stay in the corporations, and this discussion I would like to dedicate to them more
mm,
because they will face the main problem that is written in this article, that they will have to stay in this job and what
mm,
and or leave this job to go to another job. And the question is, what is the key driver or to for the job changement process?
mm.
You said that it's usually it's your supervisor. So yes, do you have any personal experiences in this field?
Living because of the manager.
Yeah.
Well, not me personally, and of course, it's not all, as I say, rainbows, unicorns always with managers. But I was quite lucky, I'll say, with my managers. most of them, not all my managers. I think I had 12 managers in my career. Not all of them were great, and I always say one of my managers was really, really not good, let's say, but I've learned a lot, and I've learned what I don't want to be as a manager. So I take it always as a learning opportunity. But yeah, leaving company. I think I left company. My thing is I always ask myself if I developing these new skills or am I
Mm.
developing in a company? And if I give myself like 3 months and if nothing happens despite me trying different things or because it's not always about the promotion or going on training,
Or
etc.
money.
It's having or money, having different opportunities as well. So in my last job, I was in the state that for like 3, 5 months, I thought I achieved what I could achieve. There was not more room for anything else in
Mm.
terms of my personal development and my professional development. So I had to come, and this was honest conversation with my manager, saying that I really love what I'm doing. I like the team and where we are, but I want more. And I'm at that stage. I need something more. And if there is nothing, like I'm happy to consider any other options here. But if there's nothing, then I will need to look for something outside of this organization. So we had a really good conversation, and that's what I did with my team as well. Like if you start looking for something else or something's wrong, let's have a conversation. Um, so not I didn't leave because I just left one company because of the manager, but and everything else because that was not just one single reason. I need to
Mm.
say, but I know a lot of people who struggle with say communication and relationship with their managers, and it is a main driver. We think that it's money usually,
Mm.
that you go for looking for a job that will pay more, of course. So who doesn't want to earn more money? But it's if you consider all things in terms of your well-being, mental health, and systems, processes, and what you do, motivate all of it in buckets. The manager is it's one of the key drivers of people wanting to leave the companies, and it's not a
Mm.
surprise because it's been, you know, uh, it's this has been for many years a cause for people leaving the companies.
Okay, so if it's a manager on the first place, my question is, who is responsible for your leave? For example, if you decide to leave your job,
Mm,
where is placed the responsibility for your leaving?
mm,
And I asked this question under this article. I mean, there was a discussion on LinkedIn based on this article, and there was a comment of the CEO of one of the biggest chocolate company in Poland. This is Polish,
mm,
well, actually, this is right now Japanese company. This Japanese health, but the Polish brand, yes. And
mm,
this CEO, I think I can quote him because this is a public comment. So Maciej Herman, who is a CEO at Lotte, said that this kind of article that was written in wyborcza.pl is a kind of can make a brainwash to some people because they are written by people who have no idea about the reality and that there's no such thing like a corporate world. There's at least the most that you can meet is the word of the certain company and the company and culture that's placed in it. So he says that you can work really hard, even 80 hours a week, and this is because you are lack of skills of being self-efficient, or for example, that you accept the orders from your supervisor who is not competent.
mm.
Uh, and do you think that what he says, do you feel this is true or not true in your opinion?
Well, it's funny because this is what I've heard like 15 years ago
Mm.
from my manager back then. That I remember being, there was no conversation about workloads. Like if you stay, like you say, 40 hours, that's a normal thing. But if you stay 12, 15 hours a day, that I used to when I was in the corporate or corporation, I've heard from my manager, it's not because you have too much, it's because you're not able to prioritize your work properly and you're not being efficient.
Mm.
And man, I was so mad because I knew that's not the case.
How did you feel
Uh,
when you hear this? How did you feel?
oh, I'll say useless, but like I can't change anything.
You
Powerless,
weren't
really.
hurt, right?
No, because it was not even discussion, the interest. Like now I can see here in New Zealand, it's totally different. It's not little, it's way different. Because if someone's struggling with work, the managers would usually sit down in a good companies. I'm not saying that all companies are and all managers are like that, but a lot in New Zealand, as I observed. And this is the culture that you sit down, say, show me, let's have a conversation about your workload, what we can do to, how do you feel about those things? Oh, I feel, the burnout. I can't stand that. I say,
Mm.
what we can do to make sure that you are not overloaded, or, how we can manage your workload better. I haven't heard anyone saying things like, it's just not being effective in your work.
Mm.
And it's true. And so there are two sides of the story. One is, it is a manager who allow for the big, like, high workload and people being like get to the burnout stage.
And who
The,
also
the
accepts the amount of workload from the
from
director,
there.
yes,
Yeah,
or from
so this
from
is like a
the board of
two-way.
directors. Yes.
Yeah, it's two-way street. Like one is manager accepting everything and just laying it out to people and not being able to say, hey, no, we're at capacity. That's all.
Yeah.
That's enough. So that's one. People who receive that, this is a very tricky position to be in because, well, you don't want to say no because you don't want to be, have a reputation of a person who always says no, don't have any time, etc. So you kind of accept this workload, and it's very difficult for a lot of people to say, I have enough. But also organizations then allow for things like that to happen. And if you think of, all the engagement surveys, exit surveys, there's a
Mm.
lot of why people leave. Because that's not like know, um, I say a magic box that no one can access. And what's your reason? Oh, we don't know. There is a lot of data saying why people leave. But it's up for the organization and HR and but also as a managers understand those reasons and act on them. So there's no one, as you asked in the beginning, who's responsible for that. I wouldn't be able to point at just one person or organization. It's the whole systemic approach to how
Mm.
we deal with burnout, how we prevent burnout, what we do in terms of our workloads, and how we manage our workloads more, I'll say effectively, but also having human in mind there.
Mm. Mhm, mhm. And so, coming back to this discussion on LinkedIn, I responded to the CEO of Lotte Bedell.
Mm.
If this is a question of the incompetent supervisor, how is it possible that this incompetent supervisor is still working in this company,
Mm.
right? Because if you've got
Oh,
the aim of the company is to maintain the most efficient levels of the workforce, yes, because the job is done quicker, more efficient, cheaper, because there are not any delays, for example, in work delivery. So
mm.
if this is if if a person who leads the company says this is for example, this is the fault of the employee who's accepting the incompetence of his her supervisor, who's responsible for your feeling you, that you are burnt out or that you want to leave your job? Is it your supervisor? Is it you? Or is it, for example, the mystical processes or corporate culture? Or is it, for example, the board of directors who give a lead to the company?
Mm. This is as a very I don't even know what to say of comments. I'm sorry for comments like that because I think it's quite irresponsible for the CEO to say things like that because what you look for the CEO is to have have a vision, lead people, and create a culture. And we know it's not that a manager like a CEO will say this is our culture and everyone will adhere to that. It's done through the managers. But if you said, I'm going to come back to that, incompetent manager, right? Because that's the word that you used.
Yes.
Depends on how you perceive competency. And if
Mm-hmm.
you perceive competency as one-dimensional, meaning you bring results, then
Mm.
I don't care how you do it. If you
Yes.
people work 40, 60, 80 hours, I don't see that. I see results, which means you're a competent leader. But if you're
Mm.
looking from different angles, saying competent leader is someone who can retain the personal, there's no absenteeism, there's low turnover, and people are delivering value consistently on the acceptable level and even achieving more. That's a different story.
Mm. Yeah, so I will keep the link, I'll try to give the link to this conversation below the video on YouTube so everybody can see it because there are more comments and feedback, more feedback shared under this article, under this post. So there's a for this kind of discussion, not to be, for example, not to have a one side view or limited view on the whole discussion. But yeah, I was kind of surprised because when I look back into my experience, I also had many supervisors. At certain point of my experience, I became a supervisor myself and manager and senior manager as well, and then the director. And what I have learned is while meeting, for example, these toxic supervisors that I had on my unfortunately I had on my way. Uh, so I learned I observed the model and not to follow the not to follow model.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
for me to be better to exclude all the activities that were, for example, toxic or meaningless or made a confusion, so on and so on. And I think that I succeeded. So the bad path turned out to be a good path. For
Mhm.
example, my employees, because when I started my company, so help desk, people who started working with me in 2015, they're still working with me. So uh, since the
You're
beginning
doing
of
something well, right?
yes, since the beginning of my company, of which I am CEO right now, and which is multinational and international. Uh, so yeah, I wouldn't if I for example were a middle class specialist right now, I wouldn't like to hear from my manager that I cannot manage my priorities at work, or for example, I accept the incompetent supervisor.
Mm.
I would feel crushed, I think, and
Yeah.
because I
That's not something you want to hear.
yeah, it's not
No.
what you want to hear. You were hired by this company because you probably beaten up your competition, and there were 10, 20, 50 people for this place that you took, right? And you won.
Mm.
So you were the best. And after working, I mean, several months or 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and so on, you hear that you are what? Incapable of doing something or misplaced or something. Uh,
But look, and this is something that if, especially I say crushing, I like that word, is if you pour your heart and soul to your work and you really want to give your best, add value, and achieve things, and suddenly you hear things like that, your motivation is gone, like immediately. This is something that's really disheartening. That's the word that I've learned being in New Zealand, that we don't want to be disheartened and feel that way. So no, absolutely. And the thing is, you have a lot of people with similar experiences, and you know, you love the company, you love what you do, and suddenly someone says things like that, and they're their manager, happen to be your manager, and you start thinking, what am I doing here? Is it my is it really what I want to go every day and say and put so much effort to do things if I don't get any recognition for that? And it's actually people beating me up,
That's right.
say, "Oh, you're not doing well. You're not
Yeah.
doing great job." I say, "Yes, I am. It's maybe you're not capable manager," as you say.
Yeah, so this brings us again to the question, where is the responsibility placed? Is it your super, is it you? Is it your supervisor? Is it your culture, I mean, corporate culture,
Mm,
organizational culture? Or is it, for example, HR department? Where is the responsibility situated in this?
mm,
Because this happens all the time. Never, I mean, no matter the country, no matter your working experience, your work stage,
mm,
this happens all the time to everybody, right? The migration, the
mm,
rotation, being fired, or for example, changing the workplace by yourself. Who's
mm.
responsible? How?
Well, as I said, there is not one responsible person or entity. I think it's a combination of all those different factors. But I'd say culture, you touched about the organizational culture, and I say culture is not by default, culture is by design.
Mm,
And that's why that's something that Christy Bruin, who I used to work with in Auckland Council, used to say when we did an active work on organizational and team culture,
mhm,
that this is a combination of all different factors, but they all just need to be in sync. If an organization says we value, you know, feedback and we want to develop people and we care about you, I love that. When you care about people, and then you have situations like that, this stays in contradiction. So
mhm.
it's not HR job to be like a guards of culture. It's everyone's job to be guards of culture, let's say, and those values that company want to establish or want people to live by. Um, so it's coming from the top level managers, and I think cracks happens in starting when you accept bad behavior and things like that. If someone like if I was a manager or a manager and someone comes to me saying my manager said this, I will have a conversation with that manager saying this is not how we do things here. If someone brings a problem to you, uh, well, that's a conversation will bring problem solutions. But let's say someone has been open and say, "Hey, I really start to feel it. Like there's too much going on. I spend long hours, which I don't like to do. I still want to give my best for the company, but it's just too much." And if someone says things like, "Oh, you know, we need to prioritize better," I would have a conversation with that manager and ask, your job as a manager is to remove roadblocks for your people, help to develop, and make sure that they have tools to do their job. What have you done, dear manager, to make sure that this person is, you know, have all they need to succeed? So it starts with, you know, top management. It needs to be executed well by everyone
Yeah,
in the
but
company.
also very often there's a problem, for example, that the company demands from from their managers to comply and to fulfill all duties put in them. But
Mhm.
the company does not give enough of workforce to perform these activities.
Oh, I'm gonna stop you there and ask you because I love that when you said, and I had this conversation many times. People say corporate ask me, a company demands. Who's the company?
The company is the supervisors of your supervisor, of his
There you
supervisors.
go. So there is a real person. There is no like this airy fairy thing which we called corporate told us to do things. There's always a person, and if you have a, we also
But
call
you
it
know,
a minute of
Michał, but you know that this
bravery.
doesn't, you know, you exactly know that this doesn't work like this. If you work in a international workplace and you are placed in New Zealand, the headquarters is in France or UK or
Mhm.
USA, your CEO has got CEO somewhere else, right?
Everyone has a boss. Yeah.
Everyone has a boss. Even if the CEO is a CEO of the company that is placed on the stock market, even the CEO has a boss impersonated by shareholders, right, on the stock market and or financial funds. So sometimes, or not sometimes, very often, there's a problem that the pressure of doing large amount of work collides with the lack of workforce of the it collides with the limited resources, human resources,
Mhm. Mhm.
and this causes
Yes.
psychological tensions in the company, negative emotions, feeling of being burnout, of being useless, of being misplaced, and so on and so on. In my opinion.
But that's why you need to have good managers.
Mm,
And I'd say it's not impossible because there are things that you can change or cannot change. That's
yes.
easiest, right? If you can change something, great, do it. If you can't change something, you can still influence. And if
Hmm.
you influence, you try, and there's nothing changes, change jobs, don't stay with the corporate or company in general that don't respect your time and don't respect and value you as a person. But
Mm,
when I said you need to have good managers, I'm just going to bring my experience from Open Council even. It's not multicultural or not multinational company, but it's a huge company with a lot of different nationalities, ethnicities, and we do have pressure. We did pressure, which was different because it was pressure from the public, right? It's
mm,
public
yeah.
sector. We still deliver a lot of deliver what we promise in many areas. We did have pressure, but because of our GM, Steve Tyson, he clearly established a culture of being effective, being productive, but also making sure that we are taken care of, meaning recognized for our contributions. And it's just create a really good culture of work. And I had no issues, and a lot of people also in our unit or department come to Steve, our GM, and say, "Hey, this is not going to happen. Like
Mm,
you want us to do this, like I don't know, 10 priorities. We have capacity to do six. Those are the
right.
six that we've chosen. You can't have all 10."
Yeah.
And it was his job to go up to the manager, so the director and others, saying, "This is what you can get for
Yes.
the resources that you provided to us. Provide
Mm,
more resources, you're gonna get everything done." So
mm,
it is, I'm not saying it's impossible. You need to have a brave manager who can, manage their team, the unit properly. It's managing up as much as managing down your team, but also as much as managing up your manager
mm.
and your boss.
Okay. So, if you could give us and to me and to our listeners two or three key points to be taken out from this conversation for building a better future, better workplace,
Hmm.
better career, what would it be?
Well, this is a big question.
Okay,
I
give me
started
one.
thinking about reasons for leaving jobs, and now thinking for a better future.
Yeah,
Um, Look, I'd say it all takes experience, and
briefly,
I know
because we've got
briefly,
almost 1 hour.
40
Yeah.
minutes mark. Um, I'd say don't be afraid to have a conversation with your manager. Find the
Sure.
strength to talk to things that are you find challenging with your manager. If there's nothing changes, look on your options. Are you happy with what you are, what you're doing, and what are the trade-offs? So I might not be, liking my manager or colleagues, but I'm very happy with what I'm doing, and I'm willing to sacrifice this relationship and do something that I enjoy. That's two. And three, if you don't like what you're doing, you try to change things on your workplace and still you can't see any changes, look for something else. There's always a better place for you. Maybe not the next job, maybe not the next job, but eventually you will find your place.
Okay.
That would be
Uh,
three things.
okay. I would give also three things to the end of this conversation. Very simple. The first one is do you find your life meaningful? It's a question to be made. If not, what takes to make it meaningful, to make you feel fulfilled in your life. This is the first one. Second question would be, do you have people around you in your life that you love or that you care about? Because if not, there's only you and your job. And if you lose your job, you will be left alone. And the third one is to be courageous, which is connected to your first point, to be courageous, to try new things, to experience new things, because you've got only one life. And if you limit yourself to the walls of your office, hell of a lot of things will miss you and will pass by. So, yeah,
That's
this
a good
is
one.
these points can be used to define if you feel the burnout or not, and
Yeah.
they're like a control signal.
Yeah, red flag.
Okay, so I think that we will stop at this point. The topic can be continued in the future. This conversation may have looked different in 2 or 3 years because the AI will change everything. This is the topic that sometimes
And back to AI.
yeah, because yeah, there will be no more chores or heavy processor or slower processes because everything will be automated.
Well,
So
we'll see. We'll see about that.
we will see in 3 years. Yeah, but that was all for today. Thank you very much for listening. If you like our material, please give us a thumb up and subscribe to our channel to be up to date with all the news that we are preparing for you every Wellsday. That was
See you next
Michał
Wednesday.
and Philip. See you. Bye-bye.